Abandoned at 13 and left homeless after my mother drained my inheritance, I returned at 19, exposed her lies and reclaimed everything she tried to bury. I'm 19, male, and was 12 when my dad died. It was a heart attack out of nowhere. He worked hard, wasn't rich or anything, but he was one of those guys who always showed up. He'd fix things around the house, take me to the flea market, and make sure I had my own tools, even if I didn't know what half of them did. When he died, something in the house just changed. Now about Mom. I remember how she was always checked out even before Dad died. She missed most of my school events and forgot my birthdays unless Dad reminded her. Dad didn't know much about it. She always acted differently when he was there. He was always working, too busy to notice how she treated me at home. But when my father died, it felt like I was the only one grieving him. Mom didn't seem sad about it. She'd do the sobbing and the whole act at family dinners with our relatives, but at home, I knew better. She became worse with me. At first, it was small stuff. Forgotten lunches, skipped school meetings, never picking up the phone. But it got worse fast. If I made noise, I was disrespectful. If I stayed quiet, I was ignoring her. She'd get mad over random things, like how I walked or if I left the hallway light on too long. There was this one time I used the last slice of bread, and she didn't talk to me for 2 days. One morning I was 5 minutes late coming downstairs, and she accidentally spilled hot coffee on my arm. She'd hide my homework, then scream about how irresponsible I was. She started throwing away stuff my dad gave me, claiming it was cluttering up the house. She deleted messages from my friends on the home phone, then told me nobody called. She would lock the fridge when she left for work so I couldn't waste food. If I got sick, she'd tell me I was faking it. She even sent me to school with a 102-degree fever. Then came the yelling right in my face, spitting words about how I was just like my worthless father. She hit me too. Not where people could see the marks, of course. Always my ribs, my back, the top of my head where my hair would hide the bruises. She had this thing about using the back of a hairbrush, said it taught better lessons than her hand. But in front of family, oh, she was amazing. She baked cookies for the holidays, posted long Facebook paragraphs about raising a boy alone, and hugged me just a little too tightly when someone else was watching. If I even thought about saying something, she'd shoot me that look. You know, the one that says, "Try me," that moms have when they want to kill you with a smile. So I didn't say anything. No one suspected a thing. Dad had a college fund set up for me. Just a savings account in my name. He told me once, "Whatever happens, that's for your college, not a penny before 18. I didn't really understand what it meant back then, but I was grateful. So when I turned 13, after all the abuse, Mom suddenly started acting nice, too nice. She asked me what snacks I liked, let me watch movies I usually wasn't allowed to, and even made pancakes one Saturday. I thought maybe she was feeling guilty. To be honest, I was happy. I might finally get the chance to feel loved by my own mother. As a kid back then, I needed it the most. I knew better than to get comfortable, but part of me wanted to believe maybe she was turning a corner, that maybe I imagined the worst of it. Then one day, she told me she wanted us to go on a short trip, just the two of us. "We need time together," she said, "to reconnect." She packed a bag for me and told me not to bring my phone because she didn't want me distracted. I didn't push back. I was just glad she wasn't screaming at me anymore. We drove for hours, out past the town limits into this dusty back road area with old gas stations and fields that looked like nobody had touched them in years. I asked where we were going a few times, but she just said, "Somewhere quiet." We pulled into a gas station that looked like it hadn't seen customers since the 1980s. She said to get out, stretch my legs. I stepped out with my bag. The moment I closed the door, she hit the gas. She didn't say a word, didn't look back, just drove. I stood there for a full minute thinking this was a prank, that she was circling back around, that maybe she'd gone to get food. But 5 minutes passed, then 10, then the sun started going down. I was 13, in the middle of nowhere, with one bag, no money, no ID, no phone, just the fading sound of tires on gravel and the realization that this wasn't a mistake. She wasn't coming back. I couldn't even process what had happened. I kept thinking there must be some explanation. Maybe she was coming back for me but got into an accident. Maybe she was testing me. The truth didn't hit until hours later. She planned it all, the nice act, the trip, the middle-of-nowhere drop-off. She needed me gone, and she made sure I had no way to come back. That first night was cold. I remember that more than anything. I was sitting on the curb outside that gas station, trying to figure out what just happened. I kept thinking maybe this was a test, like some messed-up parenting tactic to toughen me up or whatever. I remember how I was holding myself hard, choking back tears. No matter how bad she was with me, I never imagined she would go this far. No one came. Nobody asked if I was okay. The gas station clerk just looked through the window and locked the door. Real people person, that guy. I walked, no clue where I was going, and ended up following the road until I hit a small diner off the highway. The place looked like it hadn't updated the menu since the 1970s. I asked if they were hiring. I probably looked like a stray dog. The lady at the counter just said, "You got papers?" I said no. She said, "Then no job." That became the theme of my life for a while. The first week was pure survival mode. I slept under an overpass the second night and found out real quick that other homeless folks don't exactly welcome kids with open arms. I got chased off by some dude with a shopping cart who kept screaming about territory. I ended up sleeping in shifts, 20 minutes awake, 40 minutes asleep, all night long. Over the next few weeks, I figured out the basics. Construction sites sometimes let you sweep or haul stuff if you're not a pain. One guy let me hose down his tools every evening for $10. He didn't ask questions, just pointed at stuff and grunted. I respected that. Sleeping arrangements got creative. I rotated between church steps, 24-hour laundromats, and a bus depot that had one heater working in the dead of winter. Pro tip: janitor closets in middle schools are usually unlocked, and nobody checks them until 6 in the morning. I learned to wake up early and disappear fast. I once ate out of a Taco Bell dumpster and found a half-wrapped Crunchwrap Supreme that was still warm. No regrets. It was the best thing I'd eaten in 2 weeks. Some nights I dreamed about food courts like they were 5-star restaurants. I did a stint in a junkyard where I got paid in scrap metal and weird stares. Another guy had me moving furniture out of foreclosed homes. We showed up to one and the family was still there, crying. He told me, "Don't look at them, just carry the couch." I quit the next day. No school, no address, just kept moving. You'd be amazed how long you can go without being noticed if you keep your head down. Nobody really cares about the kid in the hoodie sweeping parking lots. Year 2 was rough. I went through this phase where I convinced myself my dad was somehow still alive, like this was all some misunderstanding, and he'd show up in his beat-up work truck to take me home. I'd see guys with similar builds walking down the street and follow them for blocks until they turned around. Not my proudest moments. I got caught shoplifting once. Not proud of it, but I had to. It was just a sandwich and some Gatorade from a gas station. The owner grabbed my arm hard, told me he'd call the cops if he ever saw me again. I ran 5 miles that day, looking over my shoulder the whole time. I didn't go back to that part of town for months. I found this halfway house that let you crash on the floor if you scrubbed toilets and didn't cause problems. There was this dude named Snake, not joking, who showed me how to cook rice using a hotel iron. Another guy, Big Fred, told me which grocery stores tossed expired meat the same day every week. Mondays were gold. Somewhere around year 3, I stopped thinking about home. I didn't really think of myself as missing anymore. I was just existing. Some people get childhood memories. I got survival checklists. I was too exhausted to focus on anything else, almost completely hopeless too. I had this routine where I'd go to the public library every Wednesday, not to read books or anything deep, just to use their bathroom for a real wash. I'd lock the door, strip down to my boxers, and clean myself with paper towels and hand soap. I got caught once by a janitor who just sighed and walked away. I think he knew what was up. By year 4, I had this weird acceptance going. I built a spot behind this abandoned warehouse where I kept a mattress I found on the curb and a milk crate with my stuff. I had a tarp for when it rained. Not exactly MTV Cribs, but it was mine. I started thinking maybe this was just my life now. Then I met my friend Tommy. It was at this greasy diner where I'd picked up a part-time gig washing dishes under the table. The manager was a burned-out ex-con who didn't care who you were as long as you showed up. Tommy was the guy flipping pancakes and stealing fries when the boss wasn't looking. He noticed after a couple of weeks that I never left when my shift ended. I'd sit at the last booth and pretend to nap until someone asked me to move. One night, he just said, "You sleeping here, or you haunting the place?" I laughed, the first time I'd done that in a while. He said I could crash on his couch. "Rent's cheap," he joked. "You just gotta act like you don't see the mold." I didn't ask questions. I moved in the same night. I couldn't be more thankful. It wasn't glamorous, a 1-bedroom apartment, a bathroom door that didn't close all the way, a TV with one working speaker, but it was warm. And it was mine, sort of. I paid rent by scrubbing the place and fixing whatever broke. One time the sink exploded, and we used duct tape and a prayer to keep it from flooding the kitchen. That tape held for 6 months. Tommy never really asked about my past, just told me once. Everyone's running from something. No need to compare notes. He was in his 20s, had a kid somewhere he didn't talk about. We were both ghosts in our own ways. The couch became my spot. I'd lie there some nights and try to picture what my mom was doing. Did she regret it, or was she just living her life like I never existed? Eventually, I saved enough to get a prepaid phone, just a cheap little thing with a cracked screen, but it worked. I set up an email, used the local library to start piecing things together. Then one night, just out of boredom, I logged into Facebook, the same account I made when I was 11. It still had some cringy Minecraft memes and a profile picture of me in a hoodie way too big. I scrolled a bit, started checking people I used to know. Then I saw her, my cousin Eleanor, smiling, holding a sign at some charity event, surrounded by people from our hometown. She looked exactly the same. It didn't feel real. I stared at the photo for a full minute, like my brain couldn't process it. Then I clicked Add Friend and sent a message, "It's me. I'm alive." She answered in 5 minutes. At first, just 3 dots, like she was typing, then deleting, then typing again. I could tell she was confused. Then finally, a message popped up. "This isn't funny." "Who is this?" I replied with something only she would know, my old cat's name and the time we both got grounded, for trying to microwave frozen grapes. Yeah, we were idiots. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. She was crying before I even said hello. Eleanor was the closest thing I had to a sibling growing up. She used to come over every other weekend. Her mom and mine were sisters. She was the kind of kid who memorized birthdays and actually sent cards. I never expected to hear from her again. She asked where I was. I just said I was safe. She begged me to meet her, said she'd come to me, no questions asked. I picked a diner halfway between her place and mine. Neutral territory, public, just in case. When she walked in, she stopped dead like she'd seen a ghost. "You look older," was the first thing she said. "Well, yeah. Last time you saw me, I had braces and a dumb haircut." She sat across from me and just stared for a while. We didn't even order food. I think she forgot how to form words. Eventually, I asked the obvious. "What did she tell you?" Eleanor looked down and started talking like she was reading from a bad script. "She said you got accepted into a scholarship program in Germany, some fancy tech school. She said it was a huge opportunity and that your dad always dreamed you'd go abroad. She told us you wanted to stay private and didn't want to talk to anyone because you were focused." I was shocked. That was so much effort for a lie. Then Eleanor continued. "She showed us photos of you in front of some old buildings, said they were from Berlin. You looked kind of off in them, but we thought maybe you were just tired. She said you hated being bothered, so we didn't ask questions. I asked where the photos came from. She said she got them through your school's newsletter. She showed them off at every family gathering, talked about how proud she was, said you were growing into such a fine young man. She even showed fake bank statements, said she was sending you money every month for rent." Of course she did. The woman couldn't just make me vanish. She had to build a whole damn resume for me too. Eleanor paused and shook her head. "We didn't know, man. We had no reason to think she was lying. She cried in front of everyone when she talked about you, said it hurt that you didn't call, that you wanted space. She played the part so well. She even talked about visiting you but said you politely declined because you were too busy. She didn't just get rid of me. She rewrote me, turned me into this imaginary son who lived abroad, made her look good and never bothered anyone." Eleanor looked up, said she was sorry and that she should have known something was off. I didn't blame her. I would have bought it too. The woman could lie like she breathed. Then she dropped the next piece. She's married now, lives in Hillside, married a guy named Doug, runs a landscaping business. She acts like she's always been this strong single mom who sacrificed everything, shows people her wedding photos like she's some kind of success story. Of course, she was living it up. She'd already wiped her hands clean of me and replaced me with a better version of myself in her little story. Eleanor said she'd started getting suspicious last year when she asked for my number, and my mom dodged it. That's when she started digging, but there was nothing. No school records, no graduation photos, no real paper trail. Just random pictures and stories that didn't line up. I wanted to believe it, she said, but I couldn't find you anywhere. I sat there and let it all sink in. 5 years of being abroad, 5 years of silence explained away by fake documents and teary speeches. Meanwhile, I was scrubbing diner floors and sleeping next to a broken radiator. Eleanor pulled out her phone and showed me more pictures from family gatherings I'd missed. My mom, sitting with her arm around Doug, looking like she was living her best life. Another one from Christmas where she was wearing some fancy necklace that probably cost more than everything I owned. She told everyone Doug was so excited to meet me when I'd eventually come home from my studies, said we were going to work together in his business, that he was saving a place for me. The more I heard, the more sick I felt. Eleanor reached across the table and grabbed my hand. What the hell happened? I gave her the short version, the car ride, the gas station, the years after. I didn't go into details about the worst parts, eating from dumpsters, getting jumped, the night I got so sick I thought I might die in an alley. Some things you just don't put on other people. We left the diner with a plan. Eleanor said she'd come with me to talk to her mom, my aunt, and let her know the truth. She'd help me reach out to my uncle too. He was the only one in the family who'd ever questioned my mom's version but got shut down fast. She promised me one thing before we parted ways. We're going to fix this. You're not staying erased. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. A week after that diner meetup, I was standing outside my uncle's hardware store. It looked exactly the same as I remembered, except the paint was more faded and the open sign flickered like it was giving up on life. Eleanor had set it up, told him someone from his past wanted to talk, didn't say who, just said it was important. He came out, wiping his hands on a rag, looked at me once, and just froze. He didn't recognize me at first, just stared like I was familiar but not clicking. Then it hit him, and his face dropped. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "How the hell?" He pulled me into the back office. No small talk, just a long sigh, like he finally got the answer to a question that had been bothering him for years. Uncle Joseph wasn't the emotional type, retired Navy, always straight to the point. He poured 2 coffees, sat down, and told me he never really believed her story. It never made sense how you suddenly left for Europe with no proper goodbye, no airport photos, and 0 contact. She made me look like an idiot every time I asked, called me paranoid, told the family I was jealous of her son's success, so I backed off. I'd kept my distance since then, stopped attending gatherings, said it felt fake. But here's where it got interesting. He still had something that no one else did, the original will. Turns out my dad gave Uncle Joseph a sealed copy of it before he died. Told him it was just in case something ever happened, and he wasn't around to make sure things went the way they should. We opened it up on his desk. It was simple. My dad had left me a modest savings account under my name, the house to be transferred to me when I turned 18, and a small life insurance policy with instructions to put the money into a college fund. The problem was, my mom never mentioned a will to anyone else. She told the family my dad didn't have one, and everything defaulted to her. She claimed she had to sell the house for bills and dip into savings to survive. All lies. Uncle Joseph had tried to question it once. She shut him down hard, threatened to cut ties, said he was overstepping. He didn't push further, figured maybe it wasn't worth it. But now he was fired up. He showed me a folder of old financial statements she'd sent him back in the day, trying to justify her spending. All of it was off, names of institutions that didn't exist, sketchy-looking letterheads. He'd saved it all, just in case. Eleanor helped me start compiling everything, screenshots of the fake emails she sent the family, pretending to be me, copies of the study abroad documents she showed people. We reverse-searched some of the images, stock photos mostly. Bank records proved the college account was drained 2 months after I disappeared. Property records showed she sold the house 6 months later for $80,000 under market value, probably to a friend or fake buyer. We found out she didn't even need to forge anything to access most of it. Since I was a minor at the time, she had full control as my legal guardian. No one asked questions when she closed the accounts or moved money. The only sketchy part was how fast it all disappeared, and the fake documents she used to explain it to the family. She knew exactly what she was doing. Joseph called in a favor from an old Navy buddy who worked at a law firm. The guy came over on a Sunday, looked through our stuff for 3 hours straight, taking notes and asking questions. At the end, he just nodded and said, "Yeah, we can work with this." He explained that while some of what she did was technically legal, she was my guardian after all. The combination of abandonment, deception, and misuse of funds, specifically designated in a will, created a solid case. The fact that she fabricated an entire story about my whereabouts, instead of reporting me missing, was the cherry on top. The lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue criminal charges. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to see her in cuffs, mugshot in the local paper, the whole deal. But that meant investigations, interviews, maybe even a trial. I'd have to relive everything, piece by piece, in front of strangers. Tell them how I slept in abandoned buildings and stole food to survive while she was posting fake updates about my studies abroad. I wasn't ready for that. Didn't know if I'd ever be. So we focused on the money, the inheritance, the house funds, what was rightfully mine to begin with. By the end of the month, I had a full folder ready to go, the real will, her cover-up trail, financial records, and a notarized statement from my uncle confirming what my dad told him. I wasn't going to the police just yet. I wanted one more conversation to happen first, with Doug, her new husband. I figured if she'd lied to him even half as much as she lied to the family, he deserved to know who he married. And more importantly, I wanted to be the one to break it to her. So once we had everything in place, I told Joseph I needed to talk to Doug. He didn't ask, just said, "I'll drive." Doug ran a landscaping company out of Hillside, a small warehouse office, and a fleet of work trucks. Joseph knew the spot. He'd done business with them years back. He said Doug was decent, straightforward, the kind of guy who probably never imagined his wife had a second life. We walked in and asked to speak with him. 15 minutes later, Doug came out. I introduced myself, handed him a folder, told him my name, said I was his wife's son. He looked confused, then skeptical. I didn't bother trying to explain. I just told him to read what was inside and that I wasn't there to waste his time. He took the folder, nodded, and walked off. That was it. No scene. I left the warehouse and didn't look back. On the drive home, after a few minutes of silence, Joseph said, "You did good. Your dad would be proud." I didn't know what to say to that, just stared out the window and watched the town pass by. If Dad was still alive, none of this would have happened in the first place. Then, 2 days later, the inevitable happened. I got a Facebook message from my mom. I have no idea how she found my number. The moment I saw her name pop up on the screen, I just froze. All the awful memories of her came rushing back. She didn't even wait for a hello. "You lying little bastard," she started, then called me every name in the book, made fun of me. "Yeah, she never changes. You think you're getting anything from me? You're delusional." I didn't respond. Didn't need to. Joseph and I had already filed the lawsuit that morning. At that time, we were filing for recovery of the remaining inheritance plus damages. Everything was documented. Her withdrawals, the forged communications, her fake scholarship story. It was all there in black and white. Legally, she'd had access to the money back then because I was a minor. But she wasn't supposed to burn through all of it and lie to everyone about where I was. That kind of deception holds weight in court, especially when there's a will and a clear intent laid out. Our lawyer called it strategic financial abuse. It wasn't about emotion, it was about intent and concealment. And the documents showed everything. She hadn't just accessed money, she'd built an entire false narrative around it to shut down suspicion. The messages kept coming all night. First threats, then bargaining, then this weird attempt at gaslighting, where she tried to claim I ran away on my own, and she'd been worried sick, looking for me, like I somehow ended up at that specific gas station in the middle of nowhere all by myself at 13. By morning, she switched to playing the victim, said I was trying to ruin her life, that I didn't understand how hard she had it, that everything she did was to protect me. I blocked her after that one. Doug never called me, never messaged, never showed up again. His silence said enough. The lawsuit notice got served to her 3 days later, official papers delivered by a court officer to her front door. Eleanor's mom told me she called the family in tears, saying she was being attacked by her own son, that I was making up stories to get money from her, that I'd always been troubled. No one bought it this time. Too much evidence, too many holes in her story. The family had already seen the will, the bank records, everything. They knew. My aunt, her sister, cut her off completely, told her never to call again. Uncle Joseph reached out to their extended family, filled them in on the real story. One by one, they all backed away. The house of cards was falling. The first lawsuit was civil, inheritance recovery, and financial misrepresentation. Pretty standard. Our lawyer filed it based on misuse of estate funds, violation of fiduciary duty as a guardian, and deliberate concealment of a living minor's whereabouts, all backed by the will, bank records, and testimony from Joseph. But then came the second one. Our lawyer added a separate civil suit for child abandonment. Since I was under 18 when she dumped me, and she never filed a missing persons report or notified authorities, it met the threshold for civil negligence and emotional harm. It wasn't criminal, too much time had passed, and no DA was going to prioritize it, but in court, it counted. It showed intent, it showed planning, and it showed exactly what kind of person she really was. The cases weren't quick. They dragged out over months. She tried to stall, claimed she was struggling financially. Her court-appointed attorney attempted to lowball the settlement, but every delay cost her court fees, fines, more scrutiny. I had to go to court twice, once for a deposition where I explained everything that happened, and once for a hearing where the judge wanted to hear directly from me. Both times I kept it factual. No tears, no dramatic speeches, just what happened, where I went, how I survived, the dates, the places, the people who helped me along the way. The judge wasn't very emotional either. Just this older guy with reading glasses who listened carefully and asked specific questions. But I noticed something when I described that first night at the gas station. He stopped writing and just looked at me for a solid 10 seconds. Later, when we were leaving, our lawyer said that was a good sign. Judges who've seen it all don't react much, but when they do, it means something clicked. Meanwhile, Doug hit her with divorce papers. No mediation, no let's work through it, just straight up, I'm out. He listed financial deceit as the cause and backed it up with documents from our lawsuit. He took the house, took back her car, froze joint accounts. His lawyer made sure she walked out with nothing tied to him. She moved into a cheap rental on the outskirts of town, a one-bedroom, unfurnished, paid in cash. Eleanor's mom, my aunt, kept me updated. She was the only one still taking her calls, and even that was fading fast. Apparently, my mom called crying one night, asking if she could borrow a few thousand to cover legal costs. My aunt told her no. She lost her social circles, too. The church group dropped her. The community volunteer board kicked her out. The same people who used to post Bible verses under her Facebook selfies stopped replying to her messages. Her reputation around town tanked. People who used to invite her to dinner parties suddenly didn't know her number. The book club she bragged about? They met at a new location without telling her. The PTA committee she chaired sent her a formal letter saying her services were no longer required. She tried to fight back, made some posts about being persecuted and how there are two sides to every story. Nobody engaged. When that didn't work, she tried playing the victim, posts about being a target of harassment and hints about her mental health struggles. Still nothing. Then she tried direct messages to family members, trying to turn them against me. They just forwarded the screenshots to our lawyer. And the money. That's where it hurt. The court ordered her to repay $78,000, a mix of the inheritance she drained, partial interest and damages. They gave her a structured repayment plan and put a lien on her future income. If she ever owns property again, it'll be under watch. Any large financial move flagged. She tried to claim bankruptcy. It didn't go through because the debts were tied to a civil judgment based on fraud and abuse. They were non-dischargeable, which basically means she's stuck with it. She also had to pay $4,500 in court fees and $11,000 in Doug's legal costs as part of the divorce ruling. On top of that, she owes him reimbursement for the wedding ring and a $9,000 kitchen remodel she paid for with my college fund. By the end of it all, she was left with no home, no husband, no reputation, and over $100,000 worth of debt, and every single piece of it was her own doing. She never tried to contact me again after the Facebook threats. I think she realized there was nothing left to manipulate. Her playbook didn't work anymore. I heard through Eleanor that she found a job at some call center in the next county over, works nights, keeps to herself. Apparently she dyed her hair and goes by her middle name now, like she's trying to become someone else, someone who didn't do what she did. Typical her. At this point, I used to wonder if she ever thinks about that day at the gas station, if she ever thought about what happened to me after she drove away, if she ever felt guilty even for a second. But mostly, I don't think about her at all. Not anymore. I was finally convinced that she was never a mother to me. A few months later, I settled into a small apartment across town. It's not luxury, but it has real heat, a working fridge, and a lock I control. Joseph helped me land my first job doing light electrical work. Eleanor comes over sometimes, brings board games and snacks like we're kids again. We don't talk about the past much, just normal stuff, movies, her college classes, stupid internet videos. It feels good to just be somebody's cousin again, not a victim, not a case number, just family. I got my name back, I got my footing back. And I didn't forget the one person who took me in when no one else did. Remember Tommy, the guy from the diner who offered me his couch 5 years ago when I had nothing but a trash bag and duct tape shoes? I called him one night, invited him for dinner, told him to show up hungry. He did. I handed him a plate, opened a cold Coke, and just said, "Took me long enough." He shrugged like it wasn't a big deal, but I could tell he was surprised I remembered him at all. We sat there eating while some game played on TV that neither of us was watching. He asked what I was up to these days. I told him about the job, the apartment, the settlement. He just nodded and said, "Good for you, man. About time something went your way." Until now, we hang out more often. He was like the older brother I never had. So that's it. That's how things went for now. It was rough, but it taught me a lesson, a lot of lessons to be honest. Do I wish things went differently? Sure. But thinking about it, things were on my side from the beginning. Only the process was tough. A fair piece of advice for the fellas who might be going through something similar: never stay silent. You see, all this mess wouldn't have happened if I spoke about it. If I told my father, my uncle, anyone. I was just too afraid, thought no one would be able to help me. But in reality, they do help. It only takes the courage to speak up and seek help.